When the world needs a hero, the hero will rise. Here's your look at the McFarlane Toys DC Multiverse, the McFarlane Collector's Edition, the return of Superman, and Krypto. Sent to Earth from the dying planet of Krypton as baby Kal-El was found by farmers Martha and Jonathan Kent and raised as their son Clark. As Clark grew up, the radiation from the Earth's yellow sun gave him extraordinary powers, which he kept hidden. Now fully grown, he uses his powers to protect his adopted world as Superman. The Man of Steel is virtually invulnerable and has the powers of super strength, super speed, and flight. He also has enhanced senses, including heat vision, X-ray vision, super hearing, and super breath. Well, it seems while the Man of Steel was healing, he still manages not to miss leg day, or arm day, or chest day for that matter. Just before we get a closer look, though, at the return of Superman, I'm going to take, of course, the tape measure, which I already am, and we're going to figure out how tall the figure stands. Now, even though he's pretty big and bulky, the height of the figure is still going to be about the same as regular Supes, in that the figure is going to be still 7 inches in height and still roughly about 17.5 centimeters tall. Well, I don't think many would buy the idea that a regenerated Superman would be of a bigger build than this one here, the Action Comics. The reason why I do bring this one in is not only the fact that this is one of my favorite go-to Superman, but also, though, that the head sculpts are very much sharing similar styles of molds. Not saying that one is simply just a longer hair version of the Action Comics. No, I'm not saying that at all. But when you'll see in a second, when I get up close and personal, you'll see that they have very similar facial features. Other figures that we can also bring in, all that have claimed to be Superman during Superman's hiatus. Here's what the figure looks like with Steel. Here's what the figure, though, looks like with Superboy. And here's what the figure, though, looks like with Eradicator. I know that's not the right Eradicator. We don't really actually have a classic Eradicator just yet. And, of course, I've got a whole lot of empty space here. What's that empty space going to be filled in with? Well, we're going to be talking about the return of Superman. We have to also discuss the death of Superman. Here's what the figure looks like with the massive Doomsday. From massive Kryptonian monsters to slightly smaller scale canines. One of the included accessories with Supes is his trusty dog, Krypto. And just before we look at his loyal dog, let's look at his loyal display stand, which I don't know how loyal this stand really is, considering we've seen this stand several times already. Anyways, it's molded here in black. It still has the DC logo on the front that's painted here in silver. And I think most times, if not, the McFarlane Collector's Edition figures tend to have the DC logo painted in silver. Has there ever been a time that's never been... I mean, there's been the glow-in-the-dark versions, but most of the time, usually for the Collector's Editions, they're usually painted in silver. The back is still hollow. It still houses the card there on the top. Let me just pull the card out, put the standee down for a second. Do I have to draw everyone's attention to the fact that there's definitely a size difference? And I'm not just saying, I know obviously Superman's only this big. I mean, I'm not looking at it from that standpoint. But look at the frame, though, of Superman. I mean, look at the size of what he is actually in plastic. And look at what he would have been compared against. Now, I would even maybe make the argument that Superman may look a little malnourished on the front of the card, as he needs to maybe bulk up just a little bit more. He has, though, defeated Doomsday. As you can see, he's fallen down the side of him. He's holding him on by his little cables here, which I don't think makes the most sense because by now, Doomsday would have already had all this kind of containment soup ripped off. He does, though, also have the American flag off to the side. One of the unfortunate missed opportunities to not include that as an accessory. I think maybe that other Superman, now this guy's been released a couple of times already. I think maybe one of the other Superman may have been released with a cape or with a flag. You can let me know down below in the comment section. In the meantime, though, on the back of the card, his real name is Kal-El and Clark Kent. The data file also gives us a substantial read, although the read isn't necessarily specific to the death nor the return of Superman. It's sort of more just a generic read-up of the Kryptonian survivor. Now, you can read this for yourself. You can pause this for yourself. I've already taken the liberty of reading this at the beginning review, so I've saved you some of the legwork. Speaking, though, of legwork, we're going to talk a lot more about Superman's body. Let's just move that off to the side. One of the other mentioned accessories is the fact he does come included with Krypto. I guess before looking at the dog, the figure does have some swappable hands. A closed fist for punching Doomsday's face. He also does have a dynamic or gestured hand. Either one of these can be removed. And funny though enough, if you haven't noticed already, and let me just draw to you the attention to the fact that the hands are actually mirror flips to one another. So when you get him out of the packaging, he has a closed fist over here. He has a dynamic hand on the other side. And lo and behold, would you get a load of this? The other hands that he has are basically just the opposite hand on the other side. So we'll change those hands out more in a moment. Like I said, though, the figure does come included with Krypto. It's sad, though, that Krypto doesn't have any articulation. But, to think about this, what really could I have made articulate? If I made like his legs articulated, then you have a figure that probably would be really loose over time. Making this only really just a statue is probably the best thing they could have done. It's molded decently. It's well painted, I will say. And like the head sculpt for Krypto looks fantastic. Dog looks pretty loyal, though, on the safe. I couldn't really say the same, though, for the podium standee. It does have, of course, the little collar piece. It does have the Superman emblem down below here. And I'm glad to actually see that they decided to use a cape. One of my only concerns I have with the cape is that, obviously, if you're looking at Krypto, he's white. If you're looking at the cape, it's red. You probably put the two together. Well, putting the two together, I would imagine over time, especially if you're in hot conditions, the stain of the red may eventually start to settle on the plastic. I've got just a little bit right now on the spine of Krypto. If I move my blasted hand out of the way, can you see it? Right there. Right there. Get it out of the way. Right there. Right there. Just a little bit on the top, and I'm sure that will progress the longer I have this figure out. I do like that at least they use the cloth cape rather than a plastic cape. It does give it a little bit of a flow to it. And for the fact that the figure doesn't have any posability, not even in his head really at all. Oh, wait, he does. This was super tight before, and I thought to myself, you know what, I'm not going to force it just in case it broke. But I did bend it, and you can see, like, he does actually rotate. So let me just correct myself by that. He does have a little bit of head articulation, but the rest of the body, I mean, is basically just a section piece. Putting Krypto over here, and now getting a closer look at Superman. Now, to state already the obvious, I mean, I've already mentioned this a couple of times already, Superman is pretty thick. The head sculpt is good on this guy. So good, in fact, that I'm almost even tempted to try to heat the head. And if I find my way to actually pick up another one of these, which luckily I've just found a whole bunch of these at my local Toys R Us. For a while, actually, it was just a wasteland of DC Multiverse. I think we basically just had Aquaman stuff sitting on the shelf for a while. Oh, and we also had Black Adam. Nobody's buying Black Adam toys at all, local Toys R Us's. And lo and behold, I just happened to go to one that's a little out of my way. And they had this Superman, and they had a couple of other ones I picked up. We'll be looking at in upcoming reviews. So I'm finally able to say I found some somewhat newer figures on the local stores and local aisles. But the head sculpt on this guy is really good. Why I said earlier, though, that if you were to compare him, say, with the Action Comics Superman, not to surprise anyone in there, there's very much a very similar style of face. Now, again, I'm not saying at all that they are using the exact same head. Anybody would know looking at that it's not just simply using the Action Comics head and giving him longer hair in the back. He has a party on the back, business in the front. He's got the Superman curl there also as well. But, as well, to look at the faces, they're very much similar things that you could say that this is like the evolutionary next step or regenerative step of what this Superman would have originally looked like. Again, looking at the bodies, there's really no way to say that a Superman that's been healing up this whole time would have been this much bigger and bulkier. But still, though, like very similar style of heads. Now, we did get ourselves a black suit Superman that had himself a beard. I'm almost even trying to tempt it to take the head off this one and see if it will actually fit on that black suit Superman. If not the case, I would hope that down the road, because when I think of Return of Superman, I also tend to think of the black suit as well, that if hopefully, maybe not necessarily using this body, but I hope that maybe they use this head down the road for a black suit Superman instead. I like the head for what it is. It looks really good. Painted on the eyebrows as well as the eyes, very meticulously handled. The paint also around his lips. But again, like it looks very much like if I was to take the party on the back, and I just removed that altogether, just move my fingers out of the way, and I brought back in the Action Comics Superman, would you not say that they are very much, yes, they're not the same, but would you much say that they're very similar style of faces? Okay, that's the last time I'll say that. But yes, he does have the mullet there on the back. That was a trend that not that I'm proud of it, I never had a mullet myself, but that was a trend that was a big thing back in the days. Kevin Costner also sported a mullet, which, ironically enough, also, he was Jonathan Kent in The Man of Steel from Zack Snyder? Zack Snyder. I don't know why I was thinking John Snyder. But long hair, though, on the back. Not a look that really lasted very long with The Man of Steel. Luckily, he did decide to cut it down the road. I mean, cutting his hair, I would imagine, would be quite difficult. Kryptonian hair, it's enough to hold, like a cinder block in what was it, Quest for Peace, Superman 4? Anyway, he's got long hair in the back. There's no additional paint. It seems to be relying just on only black alone. Head sculpt, though, is really good. Here's, though, where my biggest problem has with this figure, and probably a lot of people have been thinking about the same thing when they either pick this figure up for themselves or they've seen images of it online. I just feel, though, in my honest opinion, that the body is way too big. I said it. Torso is really large. I mean, obviously, he has massive sized arms. I mean, they're the size of tree trunks. The emblem looks good. It's one of my favorite things, though, about this figure is the way they've handled the emblem. It's a little, though, close in quarters when it comes to the S curl, but I think it's an emblem that works really well for this figure. I'm also liking the way they've sculpted the cape. The cape is very similar. I'm going to bring in the cape here. Maybe not necessarily for the fact it does have like the little point on the end here, but it's very much similar style of cape to the Hush Superman. Funny, though, enough that I'm bringing in the Hush Superman because one of the overlooked things that was on the Hush Superman that's now missed here on the Return to Superman is yet there's no little yellow S symbol on the back. The paint overall is generally good. I mean, there's very little paint that really has to happen here. I mean, obviously they would have painted the emblem. They would have molded only really the cape. They probably would have painted there the oval-shaped belt buckle, and everything else probably would have just relied on plastic. They probably would have painted also as well the boots. But what little we get in the way of paint is painted decently, though. But I just feel like, honestly, it's too big of a Superman. Now, for the figure's articulation, now, even though he does have a bigger frame to contend with, the articulation is going to be about still the same. So the head's going to be on a ball joint. I mean, even though he does have the party in the back, the longer mullet, the head does rotate all the way around, although you're going to struggle a little bit more doing that. The head looks down only by that far. It looks up, and it also moves back and forth. Even looks good, really, from the side there, too. I mean, that's a good-looking Superman. If they haven't already considered doing this, and I know we already got this other, it was like a green-colored Superman, like a Kryptonian Superman. It's going to come to me. I'll talk maybe more about that at the end of the final looks of the figure. So anyways, the head sculpt definitely needs to be used for another figure down the road. That's what I was trying to get at saying. The arms do come out 90 degrees. You can take the arms and rotate them, yes, all the way around on both sides. The figure does have a swivel in his bicep, no, but what he does have, though, is a swivel in his elbow. That does all the work for it. He has a single hinge only in his elbow. The hands do rotate all the way around. Superman does have an upper torso ball joint. The figure does also have an abdomen ball joint, so it allows a full rotation there as well. The trunks are still softer plastic, but the, quote, figure diaper doesn't look as bad here in Soup. May have also something to do with the fact that his body is just so big. The legs do split out about that far. You can take the legs and move them forward. You can move them back. There's a swivel at the top of the thigh, a double hinge on the knee, unlike the elbow. There's no articulation here for the boots, and then there's articulation in the ankle, back and forth, and a toe articulation as well. It's a good-looking Superman. It's a good Superman also that's going to look good on the shelf along with Krypto. Whether you decide to display the Superman, I probably would say ill-advised to maybe display the Superman with other Superman because those other Superman, like the Action Comics Superman, may feel a little inferior. Very similar style of heads, but again, I really would love to see this head sculpt be used again. Not necessarily with the proportions that they opted to go with when it came to the Return of Superman, but I'm sure the head sculpt doesn't have to be necessarily dedicated to this particular body. Why not? Use that body again. Use that head again. Give it, for example, with like the black suit Superman, which again, like you have sort of a standby in the meantime. Like I should have really brought that figure with me and tried. I'm sure it probably would have used a different bulge on it. I'm convinced that they probably would have used the very similar style of ball joint where you could swap the heads out if you wanted to. That will, of course, take a little bit of persuasion, take a little bit of heat to heat the neck, but I might just see if I can do that. The only other alternative is just to wait it out and hopefully hope that down the road McFarlane Toys will release this guy again. Not necessarily in the repaint that we've already gotten, which again I think was like a green skin version of this Superman, but in fact a regenerative black suit Superman. Something that I don't know if I can speak for all collectors, but myself at least, one that I would certainly be weighted to get in as part of my collection. While we are talking about returning Superman, this mold in fact returned again in a Platinum Edition 2-pack that brought back Superman and Krypto, though all in glowing green skin. Not a set I was all that interested in, and it still didn't have the American flag. I don't know why I kept thinking that one of these molds got released with an American flag. It still, though, had the podium stand, and it still had the trading card, but with a glowing green skin for Superman and a glowing green Krypto, I really wasn't all that interested in getting it. This, speaking though of also returns, not Superman Returns, but actually Dark Knight Returns, this mold of Superman, in fact, was used for Superman from the Dark Knight Returns line. A similar build and similar body, although that version of Superman had slightly darker blues. So it's not really the first time we've gotten this mold, and I'm sure it's not the last time either. The mold is big, but to be fair though, it works with this particular head sculpt for Superman. I don't know if I would want every single Supes from this day on being released in this body. It has to be one of those bodies that get used very sparingly, used for only certain examples. It works maybe for Superman Returns here, but I don't know if I would want to ever see it again with another Superman release. The body is built big, to be fair, but the head sculpt is really good on this one. And I think that's one of the things that maybe changes my perception of this, because generally, though, looking at this, I think it's just too big of a frame for Superman, and yet it works really well with the mullet head sculpt. Speaking, though, of working well with that head sculpt, man, I would love to see that head get used again with either a black suit regenerative suit Superman, or again, I'm even tempted to try to yank that head off the neck and maybe put it on another Superman body. We did get, though, a black suit Superman, although it's not a regenerative suit Superman. We did get a black one that was released with a beard. I might just decide, I don't know if I really want to start destroying figures, but maybe taking the head off this one, putting it on the black suit for at least right now. So we have a regenerative suit until McFarlane Toys picks up the paces. What do you guys think of this figure? Let me know down below in the comment section. Have you passed on this because the body was way too big? Or do you like the frame of this version of Superman? Let me know down below in the comment section. Backing it up also a bit, if you guys did enjoy this video, I want to throw it a like. If you guys are wanting to stick around for more and you haven't yet done so, make sure, of course, you do that two-step process. First, hitting the subscribe. Second step, turning on the bell notification. You don't have to look very far either. You don't need X-ray vision. It's just right next to it. See where the subscribe button is? Yeah, just next to that is the bell notification. Make sure you hit that so you're always going to get those notifications from YouTube every single time a new video posts. Speaking of new things that are posting, even though we are wrapping things right now for Regenerative Superman, there's definitely going to be, though, more DC Multiverse reviews coming your way. As always, guys, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.